So, as we were discussing, the Blitzkrieg is super effective. Not only does the world not have time to react, the Germans lose little to no men, and so it was a highly successful attack, which obviously worked out in their favor. One little untold story that happens is that when this does occur, the Soviets obviously don't react to going against the Germans in Poland. However, the Soviets kind of think, well, we can kind of do what we want and do a land grab as well, and they move into the Baltic states, which would be like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania area, as well as into Finland. Molotov promoted this, and that was one of their strategies. What I would say is that the story of moving into Finland is actually an interesting one. When they captured the Baltic states as well as Finland, Finland actually took a little longer. And from my personal perspective, I think that kind of goes into the story of how World War II develops because the Finns are not known for their military might, and so when Hitler sees that uh, the Russians are not struggling, but took some time to take control of Finland, what he considered to be a relatively easy target. Um, it it goes against their logic as far as maybe we should stay away from Russia. Well, if they're having a hard time with Finland, well, then maybe Russia is an easier target than what we would have guessed, and so maybe we will take Russia later. Which sorry about that. Spoiler alert. That's what's eventually going to occur. Well, after these initial attacks, we go into a stage of the war called the Phony War. It's phony like fake, right? It's like calm before the storm, right? And there's no real fighting happening in Europe for about an 8-month period. That's why we call it the Phony War. So the war had started, but we kind of had this break before really too much happens. I like to think of it like this weird photo here. Looks like not like me because the guy has hair, but it looks like what I would think of myself if I would ever go skydiving. I would probably poop my pants, and before ever actually doing the skydiving, before actually you know purposely jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, I know that I would take a big deep breath and I'd be thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? I think this is kind of how I like to use the phony war, describe the phony war kind of in an analogy because um, really the world knew what they were getting into. In World War One, the new technology made people think, hey, this war will be over fast. But the truth is the war's not probably going to be over fast, and we're going to get into a long drawn out affair. And so we had 8 months of phony war. We had 8 months of, oh my goodness, what are we going to get into? And I think the world knew it. In the meantime, they did draw some lines of defense. The French had a line of defense called the Maginot Line, and yes, it is Maginot, not Maginot. You have to say it all Frenchy, ha ha ha. Maginot Line, and along the German border, if you will. And the German defense, they had one too. It's called the Siegfried Line, and so basically they're building trenches and they're getting ready for World War II without actually getting started. The way the Phony War technically ends is the Phony War ends with the German invasion of Denmark and Norway. And you might say, why would they go attack those two particular locations? The reason for the attack on Denmark and Norway is he's actually going to use those locations later in the airfields in Denmark and Norway to attack um, Britain, but we will get to that in a few moments, I suppose. So then the real attack of World War II does begin. Hitler's going to send troops through Belgium. Sounds similar, right, to World War One, or we call the Schlieffen Plan. It's not exactly the same. He's actually attacking specific locations that he saw weaknesses within the Maginot Line, because there was weaknesses in a particular area called the Ardennes. The Ardennes is a very, very heavily wooded area that he believed that would not the Maginot Line is not going to have great defense because of the heavily wooded area, and he was right. The French are ill prepared at the Ardennes, and what ends up happening is they slip through the defenses, France's defenses, and very quickly slide into France.